Welcome into the Kuharsky podcast, part of the 440 Sports Network, brought to you by Zen Sports. Happy to see you here. Spread the word with a retweet or point people to it on Facebook or YouTube. We'll, of course, ship it out on all the audio platforms right after we're done. Good to see so many of you. A little bit of a lull here post-draft, though we did get to see the rookies on the field last week. We did get to talk to Will Levis, did get to talk to Brian Callahan, did get to talk to assistant coaches for the first time with Bill Callahan. Obviously, the highlight of that. So a bit to catch up on for sure. Glad to see a lot of you received the texts. If you're a member of paulkuharsky.com, you're able to sign up for texts here. You get a text alert when we're going live on the podcast. So good to see you guys. Wanted to run through some things here before we get to the Q&A, which is always a highlight on these things. So again, welcome in. Injury mitigation, I think, is the best thing that came out of all of this information that we were allowed to get. That we were able to gather over Thursday and Friday last week. Did not know that Zach Woodfin, the new director of sports performance, was going to be amongst the assistant coaches made available, but walked away from Bill Callahan during the offensive coach availability after 8 or 10 minutes, and boom, walked right in to Zach Woodfin. Huge departure. First strength and conditioning coach we've been able to talk to since Steve Watterson, who was a occasional by request guy, and it was great to be able to talk with him and learn about kind of their injury mitigation strategy, if you will. Said, there's no getting around people getting hurt, but talked, and I hope you read my piece, but it's worth review here about the idea of going blue collar on the one hand, heavy lifts, well-timed heavy lifts and hard lifts matched up with a high-tech approach where they assess guys' needs through science and kind of a balance between this blue collar and cutting edge, which is the most kind of descriptive, informative, and logical description of what we've heard from the sports science approach. And it's going to be great to be able to talk to him on a semi-regular basis. That'll be every 2 weeks during the season, where we'll be able to ask him about how things are going there. He said too much blue collar, and then you don't have enough juice on game day. Too much science, and then you're not a resilient, hard enough football team. They're concentrating on asymmetries. So, they've got machinery that can tell you if a guy's right hamstring is too much stronger than the left hamstring. They want those things to be within 10% of each other. And if they're not, they can put them on a program that will get those things on even measures within 10% in a relative quick order that will help reduce the sort of injuries that are created by guys being off balance like that. It's not just a strength and conditioning thing. Injury prevention stuff runs throughout the organization in terms of the way that they practice, in terms of the way that they eat, in terms of the way that they hydrate, in terms of the way that they sleep. So it runs throughout the organization. He's an impressive guy. Asked Will Levis about the impact that is already having, and he touted the speed element, a real emphasis on speed mechanics. That comes from them doubling the size of the department. John Shaw is a sports performance assistant or whatever the title is, but his additional title is speed. He's a speed coach, so they're working a lot on speed mechanics, which I think is really interesting. Two other things I wanted to mention. Titans clearly looking at revamping the scouting department. They had 2 high-ranking scouts in last week. Max Gruder, who's the Eagles director of pro scouting. I don't know if his contract is up. Josh Scobie, no, not the former Jaguars kicker, who was with the Cardinals for 12 seasons, 2 as the director of college scouting. His contract is up in Arizona. Those guys are in positions, have been in positions with the Eagles and the Cardinals, respectively, that are occupied currently by Brian Gardner and John Salgi. It'd be interesting to see. I heard they're interviewing a bunch of people. We could be on the verge of seeing some big turnover, finally, frankly, in the Titans scouting department. Look, I don't know the specifics about a lot of these scouts. I do know that they were John Robinson guys to a large degree, and that John Robinson's scouting was after early good results turned into a large-scale failure. And that while the Titans are doing good things now, like bringing in a Zach Woodfin, who we just talked about, should be looking to upgrade the scouting department. And this seems like an indication that they're going to do that. One semantic thing that's driving me crazy, Bill Callahan did not invent these sleds that everybody's talking about, with J.C. Latham had a little difficulty with early on and got a little better with, and that Brian Callahan said the veterans are still adjusting to several weeks into OTAs. He helped design them. I think there's a difference there in semantics that's important. I guess I'll leave the talk of what I saw from the rookies with a heavy focus on Latham and Tavondre Sweat for the Q&A time here. So we can dig into questions here. And we'll start with Trey Wynn, who's always a regular. Are scouts that few and far between? I figure Rand would bring in his guys if that's a thing like it is with coaching hires. Well, you can't, it's much like coaching. If your guy's under contract somewhere else, you can't just go and get him. You have to wait. And so guys need to be available for you to go and get. But Rand's been was very reluctant his first year. He kept all of these guys. Too many yes men, too many young men for me. I came up in an era where an old scout had a lot of value. I understand younger scouts are maybe more attuned to a lot of the new tech and stuff like that. But I think having an old head or two, guys that the Titans had like Cole Proctor and C.O. Bricado, of course, had a lot of value to them, who had been around and seen a billion guys. So we'll see. Alex says, it makes me wonder, the strength and conditioning coach makes me wonder exactly what Vrabel's staff was doing regarding strength and conditioning. Sounds like they were very old school. I don't know what about that makes it sound like they were old school. They didn't have emphasis on strictly a speed guy and speed. So two things, I think. The science is more of a push. So maybe the Titans are new school there now in speed, but the Titans last year were somewhat clear about wanting to become calloused in the off season so that they wouldn't blister, which sounded good and made sense and got a lot of attention. Focus wants to know if I believe they'll go after a safety. I think they certainly should go after a safety. Unless I've missed something. Justin Simmons, Marcus May, Condre Diggs, still all out there. And I think still all good options that would really round out the defense. I mean, if they had one of those guys as their starting safety, and then Molden was kind of the third safety or the fourth or fifth corner, or could be special for packages, I think the defense would be pretty good outside of being limited at edge. And so, for a team that had as many holes as the Titans did for a long time, for coming off of last season, I think that would be a awfully good revamp. Question, who do I think will be the starting right tackle? I think it'd be Nicholas Petit-Frere. He wasn't terrible as a third-round draft pick, as a rookie. They couldn't go and get somebody for every single position. I think he'll fight it out with Duncan and Leroy Watson. Though Callahan was talking about Watson being able to play up and down the line, so made him sound more like a versatile bench piece, which is what I figured when they were able to acquire him for a seventh round pick. And I just think, look, I'm not granting forgiveness for NPF's terrible year last year. The gambling thing was a fiasco. He came back and he was a mess. They asked him to play on the left where he hadn't played. I think basically he played a game on the left, a game on the right, a game off the bench, and then he messed up his shoulder. So it was a wash of a season. But, not only you hire Bill Callahan to come in and get guys like Skoronski and Latham and Cushenberry to peak levels, but you're also hiring him to turn guys like potentially Sadiq Charles or Dylan Radins or Daniel Brunskill into starting right guard, and somebody like Nick Petit-Frere or Jalen Duncan into starting right tackle. I mean, those new safety deals, somebody's asking about Antonio Winfield getting that extension. Does that put pressure on Rand to get a safety before the market changes with the flood of safeties getting new deals? Those safety deals aren't going to have a positive bearing, I don't think, on the guys that we're talking about in May and Simmons and Diggs. May and Simmons and Diggs are, vying for every last penny they can get as guys who are on the market without jobs. I mean, those deals are affecting top level safeties. Those guys that we're talking about are not top level safeties. They're safeties who are out of work. Their salaries are not going up. The longer they're out of work, the more they're going down. Unless the idea is to stick it out and wait for somebody to get hurt during training camp. Focus wants to know if I feel like the Titans reached on anybody. I'm not big on this idea of reaching, because then you're saying, are they reaching compared to what? Are they reaching compared to the consensus board? Well, I wrote about this. The consensus board is created by media. So are they reaching compared to what the media expected? Well, the media didn't expect T'Vondre Sweat to go so high, but what do we care about what the media thinks? Care about what the league thinks. I talked to somebody about Sweat at 8. My best personnel guy, and he said if they thought he was worth 8 at 38, a lot of people really liked him. So if he's a system fit for them and they love him at 38, then that's fine. Yeah, Robert Draper asked a good question. In my experience, has the franchise ever thrust more leadership expectations on a rookie now than they're doing with Cedric Gray? I think the leadership expectation concept with the green dot is being overstated a little bit. And I saw Keith Bullock tweet about this, the idea that the green dot, when did the green dot become such a big deal? I mean, a green dot is a communication thing. So he's taken the call that the coach is giving him, and he's conveying the call to the team. So the green dot, it's a mouthpiece thing. Now, once he's communicated that call, he's not the only guy who's allowed to adjust or call out things that he sees that are relevant to that call. But Amani Hooker can call that stuff out. Jeffrey Simmons, with what he can see in front of him, is allowed to call that stuff out. I would think that Snead and Awuzie are going to be vocal in that role. So it's not only Cedric Gray that's allowed to do it. So I think that in general, we're overcasting that all the leadership has to come from Cedric Gray and that he's a central figure. Now, lots of teams have really good inside linebackers who are the central voice for a defense. But I don't think for the Titans it has to be that way, and it has to be Gray and Gray primarily doing that. And I have some concerns about Cedric Gray. A lot of the scouting on Gray coming out said he was not the most instinctive guy. And they need an instinctive guy next to Murray, who is very much not an instinctive guy. So got to see how it comes together for them. But I think defensively, and I think Denard Wilson said something earlier about paraphrasing, over communicating to a ridiculous degree. And I think that over communicating to a ridiculous degree, will help Cedric Gray in that regard. Leon Strife's coming in now saying, what's the Titans' biggest need and can it adequately be addressed post-draft? Well, safety we just talked about. May, Simmons are guys they showed interest in. Diggs, Condre Diggs, another guy who I think could help there. Starting safety is a big need there. Offensively, I don't know about these two tight ends that they got as undrafted rookies. They're going to play tight ends less. So I think maybe we're overrating the importance of the tight ends, but they're thin at tight end. That's not a great spot, and depending on how offensive line shakes out, I don't think you have to address it right now. Right now, you may need to address it at the end of training camp when people cut. Edge rushers, Brandon's pointing out here, is a big need. They're thin there. They've talked about Key being limited. I don't know how much you can expect out of a seventh rounder like Jalen Harrell. And so I think they'll be combing through that. So edge and safety are the two biggest ones. Couple questions here about how the team is dealing with media. How different has media access and transparency been with this new regime? Transparency is kind of a difficult word. I mean, they're sharing more information when we talk to them, so they're transparent in that regard. They were pumping up Burks last week. Well, they shared, the ground that Burks covered in the Tuesday practice, which is the toughest practice of the week, and that he hit 22 point something miles per hour, and that was the fastest of the week. Well, those are the kind of granular details that the previous regime would never share. I talked earlier about Zach Woodfin being made available. Well, the strength and conditioning coach would never be made available. If I had asked for Frank Perino, I would have been laughed at. So, in that regard, they're good. I think somebody else asked about Carthon. He's been a little bit more out there. Surprised us by talking, at one press conference that was for a player where we weren't expecting him to talk. I had a great sit down with him at the owners' meetings, but he's still not, quite as out there as you'd hope he would be. Glory Holtz is going a little bit crazy. Glory Holtz here asking, Carl Lawson makes a lot of sense for the Titans. Sure he does. But if you tweet him, would you take a call from the Titans? He's not going to ever say no. A free agent, if you tweet him about the 31 other teams, would you take a call from? He's going to say yes to all of those. And I don't even know if he answered you, if he just didn't answer you. But whether he does or not, that's not the way to frame a guy's interest in a team. Hey, player A who's getting no interest in the league, would you take a call from Team X? The answer is going to be yes. You didn't dig anything up there. Sorry, Glory. Brandon, speaking of Burks, do I think it's just all coach speak? Do I think it's just smoke and that they're still looking to trade him? I don't think they've ever been looking to trade him. You say still looking to trade him. What is this addiction to the idea that the Titans have to trade Burks? Like, first off, Burks has no worth. No worth. He's done nothing. He's injury prone. Everybody just filled up their roster with their own wide receivers, with free agency. with the draft and with undrafted rookie free agents. They're excited. Now, if they're looking to fill in a hole, they're looking for the kind of safeties that we're talking about, the Titans bringing in. They're looking for guys like Tyler Boyd and Zay Jones that were just signed by the league. Why did they want Treylon Burks? What team right now is saying, you know what I really need is an often injured project who is going to have some difficulty making my roster? I don't understand. Titans fans more. I know every fan base does this, but I've lived all over the country. And I just, Titans fans think that their bad guys have more worth than ever. Also, the Titans have never had a deep wide receiver pool. And right now you have Hopkins, Ridley, and Boyd starting. Burks, if he plays well, if he figures things out, if he stays healthy, can make you 4 deep at wide receiver. You've never been 4 deep at wide receiver. And this is a 3 receiver team. How great would it be if Burks got things right, and if Hopkins or Ridley ran a deep route, tapped their helmet that they need to come out, or were called off by the coach, and the guy who came in to replace them wasn't Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, but was Treylon Burks, who could actually has a better skill set than Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, is a better player prospect-wise than Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. It would be glorious. But you guys see that and you say, hey, we have 3 now. Let's get rid of the potential 4th guy who might be something. The best value for Treylon Burks right now is to stay here, to work here, hopefully to stay healthy here, and to press for snaps. That hey, I need to get in there once in a while for these starting 3. And then finally, Westbrook-Ikhine can be 5th, which is where he belongs. And then the conversation for 6th can be Phillips. And the conversation for 6th can be Jackson. And the draft pick Jackson and Kieris Jackson and all of those guys. Leave Burks alone. Let him work. Let him figure things out. And look, if he pans out, great. If he gets hurt again, or if he has setbacks or everything, that's what we should have expected. Anything that comes from Burks is gravy. All right. But this idea that he's got some desirability, the Titans are immediately looking to unload him. Why do the Titans want to unload him? To reemphasize NWI, who's slower, whose ceiling we've seen, who's not explosive, which is what they're looking for. And so that when NWI, if he's 4th, turns an ankle, then you're turning to who? It's not that I dislike NWI. I think NWI's had a great career and made a great career for himself, but he's limited. He's not fast. He's not explosive. He can only give you so much. Why wouldn't you want more than what NWI could give you? And why wouldn't you want never to wind up in a situation where he's one of your top 3 wide receivers? That's what NFL talent is about. You get a guy like NWI can help you to a certain level, then you graduate from that. Push that guy down the depth chart, down, ultimately off the depth chart, because you get better. Focus wants to know, when will we see the best Levis? This year, year 3, later? I mean, ideally start to see it this year, but yeah, I would think year 3, 2nd year in the system, weapons established, line security enhanced, all of those things, defense better up, better, surrounded. Ideally, they'd get a better pass rush next year. Stop with this, Ben. Running the draft. How true is it that Rand didn't run the draft board in year 1? And how much did Vrabel affect last year's roster? Henry trade, which didn't happen. Autry, Byard. Running the draft board is not running the draft. I've tried to clarify this for you. I talked to Blake Bedingfield about it, who ran the draft board. Bedingfield ran the draft board several years. He never ran a draft. Running the draft board is doing the mechanics of the board. Hey, Blake, so-and-so, the medicals came back, and we're going to knock him down. We're going to put a medical flag on him, and we're gonna drop him. Okay, boss. Boom. I drop him, and I move. Physically manipulating the board, which used to be like you would take the guy's metallic plate and physically move it. Now you're doing it on your computer here. You're typing into the computer, and you're physically moving a guy. Running the board is not running the draft. Running the board is not setting the board. It's two different things. Now, was Vrabel highly influential in last year's board? Was Cowden have a voice in that board? Well, everybody had a voice in that board, and it certainly seemed like Rand Carthon was pretty laid back on that. I don't think they didn't trade Derrick Henry because of Mike Vrabel. I think they probably didn't trade Derrick Henry because of Amy Adams-Strunk. There were no offers for Autry that we heard about. I think everybody was on board with the Kevin Byard trade, which was a good trade. Kevin Byard was sinking. He didn't do much in Philadelphia. He's kind of hit that spot. But stop with this idea that Rand Carthon didn't run the draft. He's the GM of the team. Let's all retweet, shall we? I'm going to head over here and retweet. We're going to get that bad question off of there. And we'll all go over and we'll all retweet. It's going to be fun for everyone. We will get attendance up a little bit. And it's going to be fun. Bam! Done. Coming back over to get in. I don't know why my cord is not charging. Oh, no. That's a problem. Going to call in some help. There we go. Got some more people coming in. All right. What do we got? Yeah, it's not. The question on Rand running the draft doesn't come from him stating this year was his first draft. He stated this year was his first draft because the structure was different. He had final say on personnel for the first time. He didn't have final say on personnel last year because it was this collaborative thing. So, again, he was working in conjunction with Vrabel and Cowden and everybody. It was this failed kumbaya let's do this as a collaboration instead of making it clear who's in charge. Smart here. Robert Draper says, interesting what Levis said about already pumping Boyd for details about the Callahan offensive system. It's smart to have a guy like Boyd come in who knows the offense, who knows the workflow, and can help everybody with it from the inside. So that's a good thing. Got to send a quick text here. Apologies. Let's see what else we've got here. Yeah, Ben, you kind of butchered that question. We've hashed it out. Last week, Steve says, I said Burks was slow and he's out there running 22.6 miles per hour. The system is going to allow him to look like a different player. I said Burks takes a long time to get up to speed. Takes a long time to get up to speed. And that's a problem, especially if your quarterback isn't being protected and he doesn't have a long time to get up to speed. If they're running an offense that gives him time to get up to speed, that's great. And maybe this system's going to allow him to look like a different player. Right now, what we have to go on is the player that we've seen. Right? I'm not. When a guy has 2 years of evidence, I'm going to use the evidence. I'm not going to forecast imaginary things. Ben's going strong. Why couldn't Caleb Murphy see the field last year, and how much is he in the plan? He couldn't see the field last year because he wasn't good enough. And how much is he in the plan? Well, Brian Callahan has mentioned him 0 times. So I don't think, and they've talked over and over about how they need multiple edges. So I don't think he's really in the plan. Sorry, I pulled cords loose here, and I need some assistance at getting them plugged back in. Let's see newer comments. What do I think about? Did I watch the Denard and Chris Long podcast? If so, what did I think? I'm like halfway through it. I don't think the half that I've heard has been a great revelation, and I find Chris Long kind of boring, to be honest with you. Am I wrong here? Am I missing out on something? I don't know. Maybe I'm missing out on something. I'm sorry. I unplugged that from that, and then I don't think the brown one's in the wall. I called in some help on some cord issues. What else we got, folks? Thank you very much. Adam says, I was a J-Rob guy for most of his tenure and was a definite variable guy through and through. That said, Carthon has done a really good job in free agency, and Callahan looks the part so far. I think that's fair. But on paper, things can look really good. And we've seen a lot of teams look really good on paper. It's a little bit of a curse to win free agency on paper, because the team that wins free agency on paper, usually it doesn't pan out. Now, I understand, like, you look at it and it all looks really good. And that makes it hard to imagine not having it pan out. But oftentimes it doesn't. And so, you have to think one guy's going to fall on his face and another guy's going to get hurt. And something's going to go not according to expectation in some way, shape, or form in this free agent class. Because very rarely does a big free agent class pan out and work. Callahan's temperament and his rationale for doing things the way he's doing things, his relatability to the press and the fans, and we can presume with the players, though we haven't had a chance to talk to many players about him this far in yet, seems terrific. And I'm looking forward to hearing what they think of him and how this is going. I think just the mere fact that he's an offensive guy who's going to, whose offensive goals are in line with what Titans fans have wanted forever and ever is a big deal, right? And that's what we wanted. Let's talk about Zen Sports for a minute. Zen Sports, my sponsor of this podcast. Fine people. Go download the Zen Sports app. You can see it right here. Download the Zen Sports app. Use the code TNPaul, P-A-U-L, TNPaul. Bet as little as $10. Get a free membership to paulkuharsky.com. If you don't have one already, I don't know what you're waiting on, but that's as good an offer as you can get. But you can bet as much as $1,000 on a no danger first wager deal, which is outstanding because pretty much you make your bet on anything that's plus 500 or less in terms of odds, and you sit back. You either collect major winnings or you know that your lost bet is redeposited in your account within 24 hours. So no risk and huge chance at major rewards. You really can't go wrong. I know everybody leans on the two major sports betting apps, but here's a chance to go make yourself a big bankroll at zensports.com and have it become where you do your betting, because they're making such a generous offer to start out, and you can get a free membership to my site on top of that. They're good to me. I hope you'll be good to them. Zen Sports. Download the app, use TN Paul, and take it from there. They are terrific people. I saw a question here I wanted to ask. Take here it is about inside linebacker. Chase says they mentioned Gibbons the other day pretty positively. I haven't heard them mention Otis Reese. could Otis be the 5th inside linebacker behind Gibbons and the rookie Williams, and therefore be very on the bubble? Yeah, look, all of these inside linebackers after Gray and the free agent, sorry, I'm blanking out for a second, Kenneth Murray, I think it's a scramble. I mean, they've got a lot of names there, but a lot of names doesn't equate to a lot of talent. So, I wouldn't make much of mentioning one guy. Denard Wilson mentions Gibbons in this podcast with Chris Long, and I don't make much of that. I'm saying you can't forget about him. I can forget about him. I mean, the guy is smart, but he's not athletic enough to get to where he needs to be. And I don't think you have to have affection for this guy. So if you look at inside linebacker, second team there, they've got Gibbons and Reese, James Williams, Chance Campbell, who's not been able to stay healthy, but is really athletic. And he's a guy I think that, if he could have a healthy camp, could be a help. Luke Gifford is strictly a special teamer. You would think that he would be in some trouble. You've got guys like JoJo Doman and Garrett Wallow who don't belong around at all. But I'd say Murray, Gray, Campbell, Reese, Gibbons, that's 5. Gifford depends on how much of a role there is for a special teamer. So there are certainly jobs to sort out there after and I have to be honest and say I don't really have a feeling for what they think about those guys. I don't know how much of a feeling they have for those guys. I did ask Frank Bush about guys he developed because they make such a big deal out of that. Frank Bush has developed these guys, and he's listing guys that didn't develop that much. Zach Brown wasn't a player for the Titans. His development was after he left the Titans. So to use him as an example is odd. Colin McCarthy, who wasn't much of a player, and then he's going to ancient history. Michael Barrow, Joe. Another old Oiler, going back to the Houston days. I mean, he's using examples of linebacker development that are 25 years old. I don't get the universal enthusiasm for Frank Bush. He's got a big chance here to develop some guys, and we will see how that goes. But I hope it's as good as they expect. I don't think that his history I don't think his history shows as much development as everybody seems to talk to. Flannel Fred, that's a conversation for you to have with Chase McCabe, I'll say. He wants to know about me and the game. I don't know what the tea leaves are exactly. Michael Wagner, should Titans fans be excited for this season, or should we temper expectations, expect it to take a few years to be in serious contention for the division? Seems like they want to win now, but it hinges on Levis. Well, I mean, what's wrong with that? Of course they want to win now. I don't understand the criticism they get for making win now moves while having uncertainty at quarterback. Like, do you have to wait until you have certainty at quarterback before you're allowed to go get the kind of players that would help any quarterback have success? It doesn't make any sense. They want to see if this is the quarterback. They have reasons to be confident. He's got some great skills. His quick release and his arm strength are elite. He's got quarterback moxie. He's got to make better decisions. He's got to be more accurate. He's got a very good quarterback head coach right now. You surround him with the best people you can, and you take your chances. I think you should be excited for the season, but we don't know. I mean, that's the great thing about the NFL. That could be a fourth-place team. That could be a first-place team. I think it's a big jump to get to first place. I think Houston's legitimately good. But I could see him in the playoff hunt. I could see, we don't know what injuries are going to do to them. We don't know how long it's going to take to gel. I keep referring back to a quote from Chad Brinker about, so many new coaches, so many new players. It's hard to know how long it takes things to gel, and you hope that it could happen quickly, but you don't know. And if it doesn't, gel fast, and you have to be patient with it and understand the timing that some of those things could take. So yeah, I get this. Leon comes back at what I said about, free agency looking good on paper. And he said Titans fans are more excited because too often free agency hasn't looked good on paper. And that's true. That's the best looking free agency class the Titans have had, certainly numerically, in a long, long time. 2006, Kevin Mawai, Chris Hope, David Thornton, David Givens, who got hurt quickly, seemed like, was a great class that had great results, but didn't have the numbers of this class. There's cause for excitement there. Jason, why taking so long to get a top safety? Do you think they should overpay a little on a one-year deal to make sure they get the top free agent safety left? Look, nobody else is. Why taking so long? What's today? May 13th. They have a game tomorrow this week. If you're going to get on them about timing, it seems to me they've timed everything out pretty well here, right? Snead thing, people thought they should jump, and they waited a couple of weeks, and what happened? Trade price came down to a ridiculously inexpensive level. So if you're going to give them a benefit of the doubt on anything, I'd give them the benefit of the doubt on. There's nothing going on in the safety market right now. Nothing. So what's your hurry? I'd give them the benefit of the doubt on the safety market. Like, clearly these guys are asking for more than the market thinks that they're worth. And if they get the second one instead of the first one, when the market finally starts moving, well, I think they're playing the market smartly. But this thing, like, oh my God, what's taking so long? What's taking so long? Well, the season starts the first Sunday of September, the second Sunday of September. There's no ticking clock right now. None. At a certain point, here's a question about Ryan Tannehill. Does it surprise me that he hasn't been signed yet? At a certain point, it's better for you to wait for an injury to try to fill out a roster after somebody gets hurt. Nick D is asking me about PK Podcast on Twitter Space. I use StreamYard, which lets me go to 3 different places at a time, and I generally do it live on Twitter and on YouTube and on Facebook all at the same time. And I don't know that Twitter Space plugs into that, and I wouldn't want to do it just on Twitter Space because I do it I like to do it in multiple places to allow for people to see it in whatever way they want to see it. And then it gets put out on Apple, on Spotify, on iHeart, so people can listen to it. Yeah, look, David Jackson, this is a good question. How many examples of things like the new blocking sleds from the new coaching staff that leave me inspired that the staff may have some better technique teachers than previous staff? Fred Graves came in one time as a new receiver coach, and he had the receivers catching bricks. We all thought, catching bricks, that's cool. This guy's going to have good hands. It made no difference. So, I think Bill Callahan, it's because it's Bill Callahan. It's interesting, right? Again, he didn't invent these sleds. He helped design these sleds. But I think, it's interesting because it's Bill Callahan. But it's seen tons of coaches come and go who do little tweaks, Sean Jefferson, put on cleats and let guys hit him and embarrass themselves. Did that make a difference to that receiving group? Josh Robbins, can we see Haskins get cut and either or both undrafted receivers make the roster? Haskins is no guarantee to make this roster. He hasn't done anything special since he's been here. So I don't think Haskins or Chestnut is safe. Either these undrafteds knock them off or they find a running back, when running backs get cut around the league. So I don't think it's by any means Haskins is a safe guy. Whoops, I answered that one. I was looking for Draper. Here we go. Robert Draper. having trouble getting things come up. Callahan has mentioned several times how the new kickoff rule creates a new horizon, big sink or swim opportunity for Colt Anderson. Absolutely. The one thing that I think is really interesting is that the Steelers. So Callahan talked about it recently as real running back kind of opportunity. Pittsburgh is thinking of it as a quarterback opportunity and talking about putting Justin Fields back there. And I almost asked him about, I don't want to waste a question at this stage, about the idea of Malik Willis back there. Of course, I don't see Malik Willis on the roster, so I think you could waste some time with him back there. But would be interesting to see. Yeah, and Colt Anderson, worked under a very good special teams coach. So we shall see. Trey Wynn wants to know if he touches Bill Callahan's garment, will he be a Hall of Fame left tackle? Kivo wants me to do a daily spot on my YouTube. I do have a YouTube channel, Kivo, so you should check that out. John, they do not even have a training camp calendar out. We're not even sure about where the open dates for the OTA and minicamp stuff yet, so that's a while off. John Shepard wants to know, did Sweat fall based solely off the DWI? An Outland Trophy winner seems like it would be a highly coveted draft selection. What else are you missing? 38 is high for Sweat, relatively high. Nobody had him projected to go much higher than 38. The question is if the Titans, the general question is if the Titans took him too high, not about whether he fell too far. So I don't think he's regarded as having fallen to 38. I think 38 is about as high as people expected him to go in the analyst community. Who should get more snaps, Pollard or Spears? Who's having a better season? Who's healthier? Who looks better? I don't think you predetermine stuff like that. I think you monitor it as it goes. Glory holes again. They seem to be interviewing a lot of high-ranking personnel and scouting people. Yeah, I know. I'm the one who reported that they're interviewing high-ranking scouting people. Any time frame on these changes? No time frame. They have to fire some people before they hire some people. We've seen one practice, Josh Robbins, who wants to know, have they started any work with the new kickoffs? And how does it look? We've seen one practice that was rookies only. So all that happened at that practice that was interesting was Jaquan Jackson caught some punts, and he looked fine. That is the extent of it. What else we got, people? I'll take one more round of questions. I appreciate y'all coming here. If you're watching on YouTube, which you should be, like, subscribe, tell your friends, rate, review, wherever you're watching or listening. Do all of those things. Give your brother a hookup. That would be appreciated by you. Enjoy these Q&As at this time of year very much. Probably do another one later this week, depending on what goes down. Scrolling back here to see if I missed anything good. Looking forward to you adding some other stuff here at the end. I thought Latham and Sweat, drew all the attention at the rookie practice. I thought they both looked pretty good. It's very hard to garner much out of one practice where it's all strictly rookies. But you saw a lot of what you wanted to see. or what you'd expect to see based on their college film, based on what the Titans said about them after they chose them, after what we heard from them after the Titans chose them. The Sweat's feet, pretty damn good for a guy that size. Moved pretty quickly, covering ground, going through alternating blocking dummies to turn the corner and hit a would-be quarterback. Latham showing some really good strength as he figured out that more complicated blocking sled. There's one moment where he was in his stance, and Callahan, gave him like 4 things, head up, shoulders back, butt down, knees wider, 4 random things. Those weren't them. And he made, all 4 adjustments with relative ease before getting, the nod of approval from his position coach. I thought that was interesting. And so, a lot of projects, a lot of process for those guys to go through. Hardegree was available. I missed him. The quarterback coach Jason is asking about. Yeah, Dwayne, I took a question on this. I mean, Winfield resetting the safety market, I don't think does much for safeties who are out of work. So I wouldn't think it would do much for Marcus May and Justin Simmons and Condre Diggs. How many primetime games did the Titans get this year? One of those rumor sites had the Titans at the Chargers on Thanksgiving night. Very early rumor for what comes out Wednesday night. I sure wouldn't like to spend Thanksgiving in Southern California, but maybe, and then my family will go to Philadelphia without me. I don't know. I don't think a lot. What? Everybody still get a Thursday night, or is that rule off the board? I think that rule's off the board. I mean, I think they'll get a couple. I don't think they get a home Sunday night or by any means. Trey, I don't know what you're talking about $1,000 on his rep. You're not giving me any context there. John's picking up on T'Vondre Sweat and this Outland Trophy winner falling. He talked a little bit earlier about him going at 38, which I thought was kind of as high as he was going to go. He's saying he's talking about him falling relative to other Outland Trophy winners. Seems odd. Jordan Davis was taken with the 13th overall pick last year. You got to look at the context of the rest of the draft. And so this draft was loaded with offensive talent, with offensive tackles, with wide receivers. We didn't see a defender go until the middle of the first round. So the defensive talent was pushed down. We saw, Penix go surprisingly high. And then, I think there's a lot of context to that, particularly with defensive players not starting to go off the board until far later than usual. So I think that's there. Will he prove to be a huge value there? He could. And there are going to be more questions than anybody wants to deal with about his fitness and stuff, because they're never going to tell us about his weight. And he's probably never going to tell us about his weight. And it's going to become a tiresome line of questioning. Well, what'll make that line of questioning go away is if he's looks entirely fit, if he's playing 3 downs, if he's not tapping out, if he's making it through practices, all of those things. So if all of those things are going right for T'Vondre Sweat, the big question about him will not be a big question. If his Instagram's loaded with pictures of him out, at barbecue joints and stuff like that, then I think there'll be, a lot more questions. And if he's dehydrated at practice and heading inside and stuff like that, then I think there'll be a lot more questions about that. And then only time will tell. Underdrafted, overdrafted, correctly drafted. We don't get a legitimate judgment of those things until after 2 seasons. Really, we used to say 3 seasons. It's been accelerated now to 2 seasons. So I appreciate all of you coming. Always good to have a conversation with you. Join paulkuharsky.com. You don't want to miss anything coming up. Join zensports.com. Use Paul, TN Paul, as your code. And $10 bet. With that code, get your free membership to paulkuharsky.com. Can bet up to $1,000 with a no danger first wager. Either hit it big on something up to plus 500 or get your money refunded in short order. Send me a mailbag question anytime on Twitter and or on the Facebook page. I'm due for a mailbag sometime soon, and we'll talk again in no time. I appreciate you being here. Don't block the box. Be sure to lock the locks. Catch me on Robbie and Rex Road, roughly 7:30 to 9 on Wednesday morning. I appreciate you. Be well.